Mother-in-law, the death of many marriages. These are my opinions and no one else's. So I've been reading up a lot on social media about married women complaining about their mothers-in-law, and it took me back to a video that I created where I spoke about you choosing to love your own children. Not every woman who gives birth to a child becomes a mother. So as women, we tend to want our mothers-in-law to love us like with their own children, whereas they also have a choice to choose whether they would love their own flesh and blood. So we get surprised when they don't love us like their own flesh and blood and start saying they don't treat us like their own children. But in the back of our minds, we need to remember that basically they decide whether they want to accept you, whether they want to love you as their child, or whether they will treat you like a daughter-in-law. Your in-laws will always be your in-laws. Nothing much, nothing less. Always keep in mind that you will always be someone they knew because of him, your husband, and you will never be the product of the vessel that is your mother-in-law. Before I proceed, I would like to just say that not all mother-in-laws are bad towards their daughters-in-law. Some do choose to accept and love their daughter-in-laws as their own, and sometimes even more than their own flesh and blood. I believe that the notion of mother-in-law mistreating their daughter-in-law is an old folk that was believed by the older generation, and it became the norm. Times are changing every day, and we all need to adapt. So there are a few things that I observed in my own personal life and in my career as a therapist. Your mother-in-law will lie to all the witnesses, attendees at your wedding, and tell people that she has acquired a daughter. Unfortunately for some, that lie is quickly pushed away to the side. If you have a sister-in-law, your mother-in-law will always favor her over you, obviously. The worst is when they start comparing the two of you. And unfortunately, if she is not yet married, you might be in for a treat. You might subconsciously be blamed for the daughter's mistakes or misfortunes. Why should you have it all and her daughter has none? This in turn causes the two women-in-law to support each other about everything that has to do with you. Everything that your husband does and it is frowned upon by his family is your fault as a wife. But everything that they like and praise has nothing to do with you. Their son is a real man. It's unfortunate because if they knew that the good that they see and or receive from your husband is because you made him do it, they don't know that he came to visit them because you forced him to. It doesn't matter what you do as a daughter-in-law. It will never be seen as good, but they will be waiting for that one little moment to showcase your weaknesses. Your mother-in-law will want to enjoy a good, uninterrupted life with her partner, but turn around and not want to see the same for her daughter-in-law. She wants it all to herself. So there's a few reasons why a mother-in-law would react the way they do towards their daughter-in-law. And I'm just going to explain these few things. It's not all of them, but most of them are the main reasons why your mother-in-law might be treating you the way that she is. The first one is family dynamics. So sometimes tensions between in-laws can stem from long-standing family dynamics, unresolved issues, or differences in personalities. Dearest future daughter-in-law, try and find out how the relationship is between your mother-in-law and her mother-in-law. This will tell you the type and extent of the damage these two might be causing to one another. If your mother-in-law is being mistreated by hers, the same relationship will continue between you and yours. It becomes a ripple effect. The second one is expectations. The mother-in-law might have certain expectations about how her son's spouse should behave or fulfill traditional roles, leading to conflict if those expectations are not met. Your in-laws will love you until you disagree with them. I'm going to repeat this. Your in-laws will love you until you disagree with them. The day you decide to have a voice, regardless of whether you are right or wrong, will be the death of that beautiful relationship you were nurturing. The third one is insecurity. Mother-in-law might feel threatened by the daughter-in-law's presence. fearing a loss of influence or attention from her son. So you are becoming a competition now. You're competing with your mother-in-law. If your mother-in-law is used to having her way with her son, she might naively be hoping for the same to continue even after her son's words. It becomes all rosy when the daughter-in-law is one that avoids conflict by not voicing her concerns. That daughter-in-law will always be perceived as the best because she is being bullied and allows it. The fourth one is cultural or generational differences. So differences in cultural backgrounds, values, or generational norms can lead to misunderstandings or clashes between family members. If there is a massive difference between the two of you, it might cause the biggest issues because knowing the older generation's beliefs and norms, no voice was given to children. Therefore, what the parent says and or wants was always perceived as the last word. The animosity between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law started many generations ago, and it was seen as normal. Hence, nowadays in South Africa, they will tell you that when your partner loves you, his family will hate you, or vice versa. The fifth one is communication issues. Poor communication or misunderstandings can exacerbate tensions and lead to mistreatment. We are raised from different backgrounds and family dynamics. We will obviously not articulate ourselves the same way. Your mother-in-law might expect you to adapt to the way they do things and not make it a mutual understanding. For an effective relationship to survive, we both need to learn to accommodate each other and agree to disagree. Your mother-in-law might expect you to be the one who changes who they are in order to make her happy and continue feeling like the queen in her son's life. It becomes unfair for the daughter-in-law because you are expected to change who you have been for your entire life because you decided to fall in love with your partner. I then ask myself whether it is a blessing or a curse to love him. The sixth one is past experiences. Past experiences such as difficult relationships or personal trauma might influence your mother-in-law's behavior towards you. Hurt people hurt people. As cliche as it may sound, it is true. If your mother-in-law was mistreated by hers and unfortunately did not get any therapy for that, it's more than likely that the same treatment will be carried down to the next generation of daughters-in-law. That's why sometimes you find that when a woman has more than one son, the daughters-in-law all leave their marriages. And you ask yourself, who or what is the common denominator? The seventh one is control issues. Some individuals have a strong need for control and may try to exert it over family members, leading to mistreatment if they feel their control is threatened. This goes back to always having her way with your husband. It was okay when he was still a boy, but once that boy decides to wed, he then becomes a man. There are some things that a daughter-in-law might let slide when demanded by the mother-in-law, but things such as how to run your family, how to manage your family's finances, how to raise your children, what house to buy, where, or for how much, or where to go for vacation, things like those. Those are some of the things that are none of her business. She has her own partner, be it your husband's father or just motho wa gagwe. Does she allow her mother-in-law to control how they live their lives? Maybe you need to ask her that. The eighth one is jealousy. In some cases, jealousy or competition may arise, particularly if the daughter-in-law has a close relationship with either family members or their relationship in their marriage is so strong that the mother-in-law becomes jealous of it. Or just pure jealousy. Nje. Remember my video about our parents being human too. So yeah, everything that any person can do or feel, your mother-in-law can also do or feel. She's just human, remember? I know, yeah. There is no winning because now you have to worry about jealousy from your own peers and now from your own mother-in-law. Your mother-in-law might be telling herself that you are staying in a nicer house than she is. Her son's house. Trust me, the majority of the society still have the notion that material things in a marriage are made possible by the man. That's pure nonsense. Your mother-in-law might want her son to get her whatever her heart desires. just because she is his mother. She has a sense of entitlement because she gave birth to him. Again, dearest woman, you are just a vessel that was capable enough biologically to carry a baby for the 9 months or less. There is nothing special about you. It's just pure biology. So he doesn't owe you anything. A red flag would be when your mother-in-law provides you with a list of things she wishes to be done for her. For example, building a walk-in closet for her, while wena udula in a back room koma stand. Clearly, she doesn't care about where you are in life and what you need. Her needs are a priority. Unfortunately, if you are married to a boy, he will always prioritize his mama. Might even see you as the enemy who wants to come between him and his mother. There's an umbilical cord, a very long one that needs to be cut. And it doesn't require a natural scissor, a normal scissors that you use. This one requires scissors from heaven and earth and below and every single part of the universe to cut it. The last one is personal issues. The mother-in-law might be dealing with her own personal issues, such as stress, anxiety, or depression, which can affect her behavior towards other people, including you as the daughter-in-law. With this one, I would say the tension between you and your mother-in-law should not drag for a long time because she eventually has to deal with whatever the stress is. Depending on the kind of relationship you have, you might need to reach out to her and lend her your ear. You might be the one who helps her out of her stressors. It's important to address any mistreatment in a constructive manner, perhaps through open communication, seeking support from other family members or a therapist, and setting boundaries if necessary. Now, with other family members, it's a bit tricky because if you're seeking assistance from family members from your mother-in-law side, they might be on her side because they see you as a threat as well. So it's a bit difficult. So I would advise Hore, if it doesn't work with other family members, rather go for counseling. Rather ask your mother-in-law to go for counseling with you and have someone who's neutral, and someone who's not going to be subjective and take sides. We need someone who's objective and neutral in this kind of situation. Understanding the root cause can help in finding a solution and improving the relationship. However, some relationships may be too far gone to be salvaged. You need to always remember as a daughter-in-law that if your relationship with your mother-in-law is so damaging, it doesn't damage your marriage. You need to choose between having this fight between yourself and your mother-in-law and your marriage. So if it means that you choose your marriage's happiness becomes your priority, it means that you might need to walk away from your mother-in-law in order to save your marriage. Some of you might want to persecute me because you have wonderful relationships with your mother-in-law. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a happy relationship. Trust me, every woman prays for that. But like I said in the beginning, not all mother-in-laws treat their daughter-in-laws badly. However, be sure not to perceive the relationship as healthy or perfect just because you would rather turn a blind eye just to avoid conflict. You are hurting yourself in the long run, especially if you have children. You might not be raising them according to your own standards, but hers. Not wanting to accept that there are issues between you and your mother-in-law just because you are being naive doesn't mean that the relationship is good. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Yeah. Just because it is not happening yet doesn't mean that you should not approach with caution. You just have not yet reached a misunderstanding. One last piece of advice. When we get married as women, we are given rules on how one should carry herself around her husband and in-laws. I honestly would like to sit in when the groom is being given these rules. Do they even get rules? Because some of them just get into a marriage like as if they woke up and they were like, hey, get married, I feel like the biggest advice given to men is that they should never settle for less and should never put their happiness in the background just to please someone else. Hence, they can walk away from you like you never existed. You are told that as a wife, you should never speak bad about your in-laws to your husband. While bona, the in-laws are mentioning even your facts to your husband. In the long run, it will appear as if you are the problem because he knows all these bad things that you are doing to his family and you have nothing to say about them. It does suit you at the end of the day, doesn't it? Hence, the majority of people carry on with the perception that the daughter-in-law never likes their mother-in-law. Nah, I say to you, as a therapist and as a wife who's been married for 10 years now, happily, tell your husband everything that his family does to you, good or bad. There is no one else capable and obligated to be told because remember, the only reason you have in-laws is because of him. Sometimes it is not that your husband doesn't recognize his mother's behavior towards you. It could just be because he sees everything as normal. No one has ever showed him another version of his mother. If you married a man, not a boy, he will listen to you, analyze the situation, help, maybe even call the both of you to resolve the issues. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can resolve this issue is your husband because he is the person who is in between you and your mother-in-law. He is the person that apparently the both of you are fighting for. In closing, I would like to say, dearest mother-in-law, we have something in common and that is your son. Note that I said the common thing is the son and not the love we have for her son. This is because there is no guarantees that the mother-in-law loves him. Narcissists do not need to love to feel entitled. I will never replace your love for him, and you will never replace the love I give him. One last question to the mother-in-law hating on her daughter-in-law. You won't give your son what another woman gives him. Because the way you are fighting your daughter-in-law, it looks like o batla go robala le ngwana wa gago. And when your daughter-in-law asks you this question, you are going to turn around and say, "Wateliwa." You have to understand that your son married a woman and not a girl or a child. That means that woman is now Musari wa Motu. She deserves the same respect that you actually are demanding from the entire world, including her. Therefore, in order for her to respect you, you need to also respect her. Remember, asingwana gago. So you need to treat her like someone else and not your child. If you are used to speaking to your child, like I said, you need to learn to speak to your daughter-in-law like a normal older person because and you decided not to treat her like that. Therefore, the treatment that you give your daughter-in-law will come back to you. It's the same as the energy that you give to the universe will come back to you. So you need to treat your daughter-in-law the same way that you would want her to treat you. There's nothing special about you to your daughter-in-law, remember? Le kopantshitswe ke the son, nothing else. When the son disappears, or atlhokofala, the demise, se se le tlhakantshitseng, se fedile. So you need to remember that you are dealing with an adult here. How you portray yourself to that adult will yield results that that adult is going to give to you. So all I would like to say is there shouldn't be any animosity between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. The minute there is a sense of animosity, you guys need to sit down and talk about it. Because believe you me, it affects your son, her husband, in a bad way. Because you are putting the poor man in a corner. Now he is forced to choose between his mother and his wife. And it should never even come to that because those two things don't even compare. I, as a wife, will never be his mother. I'm not here to mother him. Oh, hell no. And you, as his mother, will never be me. Unless if we're going back to those biblical times where incest is fine. But it is frowned upon now. So there is no way you can become me. So whatever that you do, you cannot replace me. The same way as your daughter's husband will never replace your husband. And that if you have daughters, you need to remember, one day your daughter might get married. Is that the same treatment that you want your daughter to receive from her own mother-in-law? What goes around needs to come around. Not has to. It needs to come around. So the same treatment that you're giving your daughter-in-law, it will be multiplied 10 times more to your daughter when she gets married. And unfortunately, you would have forgotten how you treated your own daughter-in-law. Sometimes the reason why your daughter's kemafetwa is because of pelo ya gago towards your daughter-in-law. Sit back and learn to appreciate your daughter-in-law so that your daughter's doors can be opened. Ga o lisa ngwana motho every day, you are not just making her cry. You are making her and everything that she brings to the table, her ancestors, Mudimu, and her own family to the table. When people start praying, they don't start praying alone. They start praying with the entire realm that they believe in. So just because you are a mother-in-law, it doesn't mean that your prayers will be much more stronger than your daughter-in-law's prayers. All of us want to be happy in our marriages. We don't want to get into marriages in order to get divorced just because you wanted your children all to yourself. Stop being a selfish mother-in-law and start enjoying your life with your partner or your husband, and allow your daughter-in-law and your son to also build their own family. Remember, he is not yours anymore. He became one with his wife. And if you are a believer in Christ, you need to believe that you need to back off, because what brought them together, what's making them stay together, is not you. It's not your husband. It's God, or whatever belief they believe in. Therefore, mother-in-law, stop breaking your children's marriages and wanting to choose women for them, women that you can control. Tlogela go tlisa sefifi lapeng la gago by mistreating your daughter-in-law for no apparent reason. Lenyalo is not meant for gore motho a ilo abusiwa. And in the world that we live in now, where we understand ourselves, where we are in tune with our mental well-being, I don't think there's people who are willing to stand for that kind of abuse.